Hey guys, Mike here, back with another deck profile video, and this time I'm going to be looking at a build from the recently released Madoka Magia record set. This set came out recently in Japan, and unfortunately, due to licensing issues, people outside of Japan cannot play it in official events, so that's unfortunate. However, the set does have a lot of interesting new tools available to it. A lot of things that Madoka was lacking in the past, such as tap self brainstormers or strong finishers or a consistent advantage level 1 game. So there's a bunch of new things to work with. So I got a playset, and the first thing I saw when I looked at all the cards was this Tsuruno 3-2, which is like Aro from Puyo Puyo, except it has a bit of different. Instead of power, it gets to heal when it cancels. So I wanted to build a deck around this girl. So I thought, okay, let's just try a fairly standard level 1, level 3 list with the 1-0 Yachiyo, which is just a Shimakaze archetype. Okay, so we'll quickly go through the list itself and explain some of the card choices. And then we'll talk about some more intricacies of what I found during playtesting with this list so far. Starting with the level 0. We run 4 of this Kirika. Its effect is on play, reveal the top card of your deck, and then if it's a magic character, you can put it underneath her as a marker, and if she has a marker underneath her, she gets +1 level and plus 1500 power. So it's a pretty common profile, but it's a profile that I actually like a lot. Not only because it's a pretty good early game level 0 play, she just becomes a 3-5 level 1 beater, but also during the mid and late game, she oftentimes acts as not only a top checker to see if your next card, but also is a pseudo +1 to your brainstorming effects. Because if it's a character, you can just put it underneath her, and that's essentially one card that's not a climax that's gone from the top of your deck. Likewise, if you just want to know your trigger, you can just reveal it, and even if it is a magic character, you don't have to put it underneath her as a marker. So it's a very useful card. And the reason I run 4 of it is not only because I want to see it early, but also because it's essential blue fix for my level 1 game. Next up, we have 4 of the Homura. It has the Riki profile, so on play, you can pay 1, clock yourself to search your deck for a level 1 or lower. Just a really essential card to be able to consistently get what I need depending on the various states of the game. Her second effect is at the start of my climax phase, I can, if this is in the front row, I can choose one of my characters to give a +1 level or -1 level. Now, initially during spoiler season, I think I was getting pretty hyped about all this +- level shenanigans. I thought there would be some pretty cool mechanics that would go with it since they pushed it pretty hard. It turns out that's not really the case, so this +- level thing is not too, it doesn't really do that much, but it's still an extra effect. Sometimes you can give a level to one of your characters and then stop it from getting reversed by a bomb, so that's always useful. But otherwise, just a 4 of, not only because it's a Riki profile, but also as a general color fix for green. Next, we have 3 of the Sauna Brainstormer, and then pairing alongside it 1 of the Kaide Brainstormer. The Sauna Brainstormer is at the start of your climax phase. You choose one of your level 2 or lower characters, and you can give it -1 level. And you can just choose yourself. If you don't want to choose one of your front row to give it -1 level, you can choose anyone on your board. And then her second effect, her Brainstorm effect, is pay 1, tap self, mill 4, and then per every climax hit, you can salvage 1 character. So this is the tap self salvage brainstorm that we run in this deck, and it's also really important in yellow splash. Yellow, I think, is the lowest amount of cards in the deck, but it is also just our entire level 3 game. So just running 3 copies of it, because we're also running 1 copy of this Kaide too, and because our yellow is only at level 3, we don't necessarily need to have yellow in our level zone until late level 2 into level 3. So leveling this is no problem. The Kaide Brainstorm is a tap self brainstorm, and then mill 4, per every climax hit, you can draw 2, discard 1. And then she also has the secondary effect of your front middle character gets 500 power. Now the reason I liked this 3-1 split here instead of just running 4 of the Sauna Brainstorm is because of the triggers in the deck being book and shot, as well as the deck also runs a lot of events. So there's a lot of things that I would like to draw into my hand that I can't normally search for through brainstorms or through Riki effects. It's also a nice way to get rid of extra climaxes and an additional way to mill through the deck. One of the biggest problems I've seen from the new set, from Magia record, and from Madoka in general, is that it just doesn't mill very well. There's no Rize effect, there's no Akatsuki effect, there's no even like mill 3, the most you have are kind of like mill 2s. So we'll get to that problem in a second and how I approach deck building to be able to kind of alleviate just losing by not being able to mill through your deck fast enough. So we have those 4 brainstorms there. And next up, we run 2 of this Momoko support. Global 500 to all magic characters, and then on play, mill the top 2 cards of your deck, and then if there's a climax amongst those 2 milled, you can give one of your characters 1500 power. Now, the primary function of this card is just to be able to mill 2 cards from your deck. Though the Global 500 does come into play and is pretty nice. We don't particularly run this for color or anything. We don't run anything that's red outside of level 0. The primary function is just to mill 2 cards. Now, this actually comes pretty in handy, for example, if you're at level 2 and you brainstorm salvage and you hit, and you can kind of get this card, and if you have 6 cards in deck, you can just play this mill 2, and then you have 5 or less for the home rough refresh. Otherwise, instead of being able to mill through a lot of cards at one instance, this deck kind of tries to gradually go through cards throughout the first refresh, like pre-first refresh. So for example, we have the Kirika, which top checks ass, that's like -1 from the deck. We have the Momokos that are -2 from the deck, and then we have the top self brainstorms, which allow you to brainstorm multiple times per turn to be able to go through your deck faster. So it gives you a lot of options in being able to go through your deck when you need to. Unfortunately, it does cost a lot more stock than compared to if you had like an Akatsuki profile. So that's something that we'll address just a bit as well. So we run 2 of these globals. Next, we have 2 of this Madoka. It's a fairly common profile on play discarded climax. If you do, you can salvage a magic character from your waiting room. I think I like this card as just a crutch out to be able to discard climaxes pre-refresh as well as just on demand get something that I need. Otherwise, I don't know. This is a card I've put in as a 2 of. It's worked out well so far, but I'm not sure if this is absolutely necessary. I just haven't really found anything else to play. So I think this card is fine for now, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the future I found something else better to put in a slot. And to round out the level 0 game, we run 3 of this Kaoru. Now this Kaoru, I was actually pretty skeptical of it at first. I was reading all the cards in Magia record, and this card actually seemed pretty cool to me. Not only for its on play and on reverse top check scry effect, which we first saw in Monogatari Season 2 on a 0-0 Hanakawa, but also for its second effect. It has startup. If you're level 2 and higher, you can send this card to stock and then play a 2-1 Kazumi from your hand. Now the 2-1 Kazumi is kind of a shitty card, but we really run this card primarily for the top check effect and for the free stock. So I put 2 copies in my original list, kind of just to test out the waters, see if this card is any useful at all. And then I realized this card was actually insane. Like really, really, really good. And the reason why this card is so good kind of has to do with the rest of the set and how this deck functions. So I mentioned earlier that milling is a problem in Magia record. You really don't have that many ways to mill outside of top self brainstorms, which means that you're spending a lot of stock that you normally don't want to spend going through your deck, right? Now this card, not only does she top check on play, so if you see a non-climax, you can just put it on the bottom, and then that's essentially a 5-card brainstorm. Not only that, but it refunds you that stock that you used for brainstorming. So essentially, if you want to think of it, it's just pay 0, mill 5, right? Now obviously there's the implications of having -1 hand, because you're sending a card from your hand to the stock. But based on our end game and based on the rest of the deck, it's actually not that big of a deal. Your level 3 game doesn't need to discard any additional cards to activate its burn effects. Your other level 3, I run the 3/2 Homura. That card digs on play. And you generally have pretty good ways of just grabbing things you need through brainstorms and the like. So I think of this card as just, would I rather have -1 hand and have a much better stock situation, deck situation, and potentially being able to hit brainstorms, or would I rather not have that? I mean, it's kind of a weird way to put it, but I think if you guys test out this card, let me know what you guys think. I've found this card to be extremely powerful, primarily for its use in the level 2 game, but also at level 0, it's a pretty fair turn 0, like level 0 play as well, because not only do you get to scry on play, but you also get to scry on reverse. This kind of, depending on your opponent's attack order, if they attack into it last, you get to essentially top check before you draw, and then if there's a card that you see that you don't like, you just put it on the bottom. So that's one additional draw that you get, essentially. You get to look at one more card. Whereas if they attack with this in the middle of their attack phase, like before their last attack, when this gets reversed, you can top check, and then if it's not a climax, just put it on the bottom and you have a higher chance of canceling. And there's actually a fair amount of times where this card canceled, this card got reversed in the middle of battle, I top checked, and then that top check was actually what let me cancel some following attacks. So very, very powerful card, not only during the early game, but also has very applicable uses during the level 2, level 3 game. So that rounds out our level 0 line. I think we have 19 zeros. 19 zeros. And color-wise, I think a lot of these cards are here for color. The blues we need for the level 1 game. The Riki just for the Riki, but also it's useful in being able to play level 1 green, which we do have in the deck, and the yellow, like I mentioned earlier. We don't have too much yellow in the deck, but it is our level 3 game, so having this, not only because it's a good salvage brainstorm, but also being yellow makes it a very, very good card for multiple reasons. Now on to the level 1 game. This is our level 1 combo. The 1/0 Yachiyo, her effect is if you have 2 other magic characters, she gets plus 1000 on the board, so she's 5500 power, and then climax combo with the book. When this card reverses your battle opponent, you can search your deck for up to 1 magic character and add it to your hand and then shuffle your deck. So it's a fairly textbook Shimakaze effect. Nothing new, but just because it's nothing new doesn't mean it's bad. It's just a consistent way to transition from your early game to your mid game. Well, let's put that here. All right, next we run 3 of this 1/0 Madoka. The Madoka's effect is on play, you get 500 power per every one of your magic characters on the board, including herself. And then her second effect is when this card's battle opponent is reversed, and this means during either player's turn, mandatory mill the top card of your deck. If that milled card has the same name as one of your characters on your board, then that milled card goes to your stock. So for example, if I have a board involving one of these cards and then Madoka versus someone and I mill this card from the top of my deck, this card goes to stock. Now, this mandatory stock business, I'm not a big fan at all because it's mandatory. And I found that milling one card randomly for the stock, it just doesn't really do anything that much. I primarily play this because it's also the early play condition for the 3/2 Homura, which I'll get to in a bit. If the 1/0 Madoka isn't clocked, then the 3/2 Homura gets -1 level in hand. But otherwise, I just play it as a beater during level 1 if I don't have like a Yachiyo play to go with. But overall, the mill is not especially impressive, and this card in general is kind of whatever. But we have to run a consistent number. We have to run 3 because we have to get it in hand to clock at level 2. And then we run 2 of this 1-0 Madoka. Now, 1-0 Homura. Now this Homura is a really interesting card. So if you have 2 or more other magic characters on the board, she gets plus 1000 power. And at the start of either player's attack phase, choose one of your front row characters. And then if your other front row characters are the same level as the character you chose, so for example, if you chose the 1-0 Yachiyo, and all of your front row are level 1s, then the Homura gets the following effect. She gets plus 1000 power for the turn, and also gets one of your other characters is frontal attacked. You can pay 1 and send this to waiting room to bounce that character that's getting frontal attacked. So for people that are familiar with this kind of effect, Persona 4 and Persona 5 have it in their 0-0 Naoto and the 0-0 Akechi. And most infamously, Monogatari Season 2 has it in their middle schooler Shinobu card. Now this is a level 1 profile, but it's actually really good because it's also 6500 power. And so it kind of serves 2 roles. It can be a frontline beater, and then on the defense, it can act as a pseudo denial of reversal, or just paying 1 to +1 if your characters were already going to get reversed. But later in the game, you can also put this in the back row. And the Homura doesn't have to be in the front row for her to activate the bounce effect. As long as your front row is all the same level, she gets to activate it in the back row as well. In my original list, I ran forward this card because I thought this card was really, really broken. And to an extent, it is. But I've had to reduce the count on this Homura in order to increase the count on the Madoka, because I've had to prioritize more on early playing the Homura 3-2 as a primate game plan, because I was starting to lose the damage raise at level 2 without early playing stuff. So we just have 2 of this now. To round out the level 1 game, we have 1 counter. 1 is a really awkward number. I used to run 2 to 3 in conjunction with having a lot of the Homura and the Yachiyo, with the mindset of being able to play a pretty preventative level 1 game in denial of reversal and advantage. However, I've had to shift focus away from that, as I mentioned earlier, because I would start losing a lot of not only damage race at level 2, but playing this game plan, my deck was less consistent. I also had some other things that I changed up a bit. For example, I ran the top 2 Brainstorm, the Yachiyo Brainstorm, instead of top self Brainstorms, and that was what led me to realize that without top self Brainstorms, Madoka has no way to mill through your deck. So I think top self Brainstorms are very mandatory in playing any Madoka deck right now. But anyways, because there is no room for more than 1, I just run the 1. People might argue that if you're running 1, you might as well run 0, but I'm always of the mind that unless your deck really just doesn't need to play counters, it's always good to just have the 1 to kind of keep your opponent on your toes. Because there have been plenty of instances where I knew my opponent wasn't playing any level 1 counters, and I would just free farm them with characters that are like only 500 power above on all lanes. Whereas if I knew that they ran counters, I would be a lot more hesitant to be so greedy. And I would try to focus more on guaranteeing 1 lane and then kind of tying or sacrificing some other lanes. So I do still like the idea of the 1-off counter, and it is a 2k counter, so it still would come in useful. You can always search for it or salvage it if you need to. So that rounds out our level 1 game. It's pretty simple, nothing special. Level 2. It's a very sparse line. We run these 3 cards. Now, the Kyoko and Homura are 2 of, I think they might be the only 2 cards from not Magia record. I think like 95% of this deck, if not more, is just new cards. But the reason why they're in here is because they're really good. The Homura, I'm sure everyone is well aware. On play, if you have 5 or less cards in your deck, you can just refresh and then your entire board gets 2k power. Now, this card is a lot more accessible now that you have salvage brainstorms, now that you have ways to search through your level 1 combo. But at the same time, it's not something you crutch on a lot as much anymore, because you find yourself refreshing rather, somewhere around level 1 more than not. So generally, I use the home run refresh more often in the second or third refresh rather than the first. That's a product of just aggressively milling through the deck when needed and then trying to refresh as soon as possible. And then next we have the Kyoko. The Kyoko is just a generic sack counter. When you play the counter, you can pay 2 and sacrifice one of your characters on the board to kill a character on your opponent's side whose level is higher than their current level. It's just a one-off just to keep them on their toes. And then for the last card, we have this 2/1 Yachiyo. On board, she she loses 1 level. So she's level 1 on the board, and then she's a bottom deck bomb against higher level characters. So these 2 cards are kind of like your pseudo answers for early plays. And this is all I have for level 2. The level 2 is very sparse. Finally, we get to the level 3 line. Now we run 4 Tsurunos and 3 of the 3/1 event. Now the 3/2 Tsuruno is on play, she gets cancel burn. And then climax combo with a shot trigger, she gains another cancel burn. And then when your opponent cancels once per turn, let's rephrase that. When you play the climax, she gets cancel burn, and also once per turn, when your opponent cancels this card's attack, you get to heal for 1. So essentially, when you're playing this, she gets double cancel burn, and then if your opponent cancels, you heal 1, burn 2. That's what this card does. So it's very, very similar to 3/2 Aro from Puyo Puyo, except instead of giving everyone 2,000 power, Tsuruno gets on cancel heal. And then the 3/1 event is choose one of your magic characters and give it plus 5,000 power, plus 1 soul, and cancel burn. Now that's actually just insane, right? Like imagine a field where you have something like this, or whatever configuration of events you wanted to stack on. One of the weaknesses that Tsuruno level 3 has is that it doesn't really gain any power, but at the same time, is that really a weakness because you don't really need to reverse anything? But being able to reverse things is still good because if for some reason they don't die, you have more things to absorb damage. Because most likely, if they don't die, you've probably healed 3 times. So you're probably at like 3-0, 3-1. And then just having these bodies on the board makes it so like you're less likely sometimes to take damage. But the primary reason we run this event is for the plus 1 soul and the cancel burn. Stacking multiple cancel burns on someone that already has cancel burns is like actually just is so crazy. It's so insane, right? Like this is probably one of the most insane level 3 games that I've played. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but this is very powerful. Like that's the point I'm trying to make. Now, the one weakness that this level 3 line does have is that it's very susceptible to tap counters. It's very weak to money counters. There's nothing like the 0-0 Little Busters Komari and hexproof. There's no way to give them any sort of like your opponent can't use events or counters. So if your opponent does run a deck like that, then you kind of are a bit out of luck. You have to play more towards the level 2 game, try to win on board, and then use these to direct attack. Alternatively, since these also give 1 soul, if you are faced with such a predicament, you can try to just side. And then if you're lucky, they cancel, and then you burn like 1 billion damage. Now, this is the reason I wanted to play Magia Record. Well, not the reason I want to play Magia Record, but this is the first thing that comes to mind when I see the cards in Magia Record. This is the reason I want to play the set competitively if I were to choose the set to go into a tournament, which I can't. But that's besides the point. This card is super, super strong. And the fact that it combos with a shot trigger kind of doubles on like, wow, cancel burn how many times? Like 5 times? That's a lot of times, right? So we have those. And then to round out the deck, we run 3 of this 3/2 Homura, which I alluded to previously, which combos with the 1-0 Madoka. Now the 3/2 Homura is if this 1/0 Madoka is in your clock zone. She gets -1 level 1 hand. On play, you can top check up to the top 3 cards of your deck and add any one card from those top checked to your hand and then discard the rest. And then she also gets 500 power for every one of your magic characters. And something really cool is, and flavorful is her last effect being, during either player's attack phase, no other character can move. So this has a variety of applications. For example, against Attack on Titan, their mobility gears won't do anything. Against anything that field swaps, those can't move. Against Bane Dream, the 1/0 Rimi actually doesn't do anything anymore. So a variety of uses, but for the most part, I play this package because of the early play cantrip beater. In my initial list, I ran the 3/2. Let me see if I have that on me real quick. Yeah, there it is. The 3/2 Felicia. I used to run this card in like 2 or 3, and I only ran one of this for the top check 3 at level 3 without really thinking about early playing it. And it turns out this card actually doesn't do anything for the game plan of the deck. You play it, sure, you heal, and then like your hand is still pretty garbage because you still need to find your level 3 game, you still need to find these events, and you still need to draw the burn climax because the deck otherwise naturally can't do it very well. So in my second iteration, in my second week of playing this deck, I cut this card out completely. I bumped this up to 3, and then I bumped this up to 3 as well, with the mindset of, okay, level 1, I'm going to play my level 1 combo and get my standard advantage there. When I get to level 2, I'm going to early play most of the time. Because not only does this provide something that will be able to comfortably contest board, it also has 2 souls, so it helps me push for damage without needing a climax. And it digs for my endgame pieces. As those serves a variety of uses. Previously, when I wasn't early playing, I just started losing damage a lot at level 2. I was losing board, I was losing damage, and things were really spiraling out of control because I was trying to find my pieces for level 3 so much. And then what often happened as a result of that was that, sure, I would get to level 3 and I would have all the pieces I need for my level 3 game. But my opponent is like 2-3 or 2-4, and I can't kill them from that range. Like, this doesn't really kill from 2-3 or 2-4. It really starts comfortably killing after the level 3, preferably like 3-1, 3-2. All right, so this package, running 3 of each of these cards was my solution to that level 2 problem. And thankfully, it's actually worked out very, very well. Like, the Homura actually gives you, it's kind of like the key that solves a lot of the issues like in this deck. Goes through your deck, cantrips, is a big beater, is 2 soul, and has the secondary, sometimes useful effect of no one can move. And obviously for the climax line, we have 4 books and 4 shot. And so that's the deck. Let me just lay everything out in one snapshot so that we can get a more accurate view of what is in the deck. So we have 4 Homura, we have 4 of this beater, we have 3+1 Brainstorm. And then we have 2 of the Global 500 with on-play Mill 2 effect, and then we have 2 of the Ditch Climax Salvager, and then we have 3 of this on-play / on-reverse top check Scry, as well as free stock. Level 1, we run 3 of the Madoka, which is needed for the 3/2 Homuras and early play condition. We run 2 of the 1/0 Homura, JK Shinobu effect, and then we run 4 of the Yachiyo Climax combo. Level 2, which is a pretty sparse line, we just run 1 anti-level bomb, we run stack counter, and we run 1 refresh. Oh, there's also the 1/0 counter. And then level 3, we run 3 of the 3/2 early play Homura, we run 3 of the burn event, and then we run 4 of the Aural Profile 3/2 Tsuruno with 4 book and 4 shot. So this is the deck. Some remarks about the overall construction of the build, as well as some kind of like more intricate parts of the deck. At level 0, I'm aggressively mulliganing for like Yachiyo, for Book, and then more importantly for the Kirika, the Homura, and a Brainstorm. I generally will toss the 00 Kaoru on my on my opening hand, as well as the 00 Momoko, unless there's very specific matchups, which I know the Global 500 is necessary. But otherwise, I'm just looking for like the general good cards, right? Level 1, I go for the Yachiyo combo, and then the 1-0 Homura, I don't utilize that much. These cards I utilize more as just a supplemental beater. I don't really try to go for matching all my levels out on the front row. It's more important that I efficiently use my resources. This card is more of a good play when I get to level 3, when I play 3 of the Tsuruno in the front row, and then I have the Homura in the back row to be able to bounce one of these back to my hand the following turn if my opponent doesn't die. The Homura I really dislike playing. I almost never want to play it, but if I have to, I will. At worst, it's a beater. Well, not at worst, it's a beater. Even worse, you mow a climax and it's awful, right? But it's just a beater. But I generally don't look to play this card. I generally just look to clock it for the 3-2 Homura. Search targets for the 1-0 Yachiyo. I'm generally searching for either the 1-0 counter or the pieces for my early play. If my hand is really good, I go for the 0-0 Kaoru, which leads me to a better next turn in terms of being able to 5-card Brainstorm, top check the top card of my deck, as well as just additional stock. A side note about the 0-0 is also, like I said, I mulligan it during my opening mulligan, but if I draw into it, I'm actually pretty happy about it. Because if it's not additional hand fix for your falling draw, then it's additional top check for potentially canceling at level 0. Which sometimes bites you, but most of the time it's actually pretty good. The free fresh, like I mentioned, I don't use it that much. And then the sack counter even less so. I really just have it here for the threat. But generally, you're better off saving your resources in trying to obtain the things you need for a level 3 game. And for the most part, you're okay with letting them attack with your early play, and then you can just respond with your bottom deck Suicider the next turn. So I feel like even though I wouldn't be comfortable with it, I can see a scenario where I cut like this, but I probably wouldn't anyways. I feel like this card is still too important. Like, it'll just win you the 1 in 5 games that your opponent plays like double on reverse level 3 combo, or like 3-2 Madoka, 3-2 Yukina, that sort. I think that's about it. I mean, it's not a very complicated deck to explain. There's not too much like wacky things going on. I think the most interesting part about why I wanted to make this video was because I wanted to share my thoughts on the level 2 game in particular, because like building this deck is kind of really, it builds itself for the most part. You have good cards. You have a lot of good cards that would naturally fit in your build. And so you have like Riki, you have the Shimikaze combo, and you decide what you want to play for level 3, and then okay, oh, I need a beater or a runner, and I need that to be on color, so that's naturally the Kirika, and then I also need some good brainstorms, and the Sanai obviously is an amazing brainstorm and also is yellow, so it helps with my yellow fix. And then I need mill options, so the tap self brainstorms as well as the mill 2. So you kind of go through these check marks of what you're looking for when you're building a deck. Like, I need search, I need salvage, I need a level 1 combo that gives me advantage, I need ways to mill, I need to hand fix, these kind of problems, right? So when I was first building the deck, I went through those processes, and it wasn't until playtesting that I realized that at level 2, this isn't something you can really discover until you playtest. And it's not something I found out until I played games with this deck. It's at level 2, I just started losing. Like, all the time I started losing, because I was so focused on trying to get my level 3 game that by the time I got to level 3, they weren't even at level 3 yet. Like, I would just be at 3-2 and they'd be at 2-3, 2-4. So, like, the biggest part, like, I think this inclusion is really important. There are other options. I personally haven't tested them myself yet. For example, the 3-2 Sayaka with the Wish combo, potentially very, very strong. There's also a lot of really good other events in this set as well, like the 3-1 blue Heal Search event. Like that card is so like stacked, right? The reason I'm not running that card is because I'm already running these events, and I think the deck is at a comfortable place where you can comfortably get your Tsurunos like at least 2, if not just 3. And then generally, once you go past mulligan, like if you see this in your hand, you mulligan them every time basically. But after that, you, for the most part, are able to hold these after mulligan and just hold on to them for your level 3 game. So like it's very, very common that your level 3 game has some sort of like this. This is like your end game goal. And then obviously the more of this you have, the better, but we don't really expect us to have more than 1. Like I think 1 is probably on average what you expect to get. But at the same time, you want to give yourself the chance of getting multiple copies of that event, which is why we run multiples of the 3-2 Homura and the draw 2 Discard on Brainstorm. And because we're spending so much stock on that, the 0-0 Kaoru, like I use this card at least 3 to 4 times a game. And every time you use it, after level 2, it goes to stock. Like, that's just free stock right there. Like, it's just absolutely free, right? Like, I wish I could, like, explain more about how much I love this card. Because, like, originally I was thinking of running, like, Mami Sayaka, the levels, the first set, the filter. But then I realized this card is just better. Like, this card is just actually better. And you don't even need Mami Sayaka as much because you have Riki now. You can just like get what you want instead of trying to like manually filter through the top cards of a deck, trying to find something you want. All right, so I think that's all I have to say about this deck profile. I think going forward, although I do like this deck a lot, I do want to try the other things in Magia record, like the level 1 pseudo standby combo or like a yellow coin flip deck or something like that. But for the time being, I think this is a really powerful deck. So if you like the Madoka franchise, even though it's not officially supported outside of Japan, you can still just get the cards and play at your locals. I don't think anyone will mind. And I think this deck is actually really fun to pilot. You have a lot of decisions to make and you have a lot of things to do starting level 2. You almost start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! All right. If you have any questions or concerns or opinions about like some of the ratios of this list, or like something that like you want more in detail, feel free to leave a comment, and then I'll get back to it. All right, bye.